TCU should offer Max Duggan the opportunity to come back as a coach.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by FanDuel. FanDuel's always got great deals going on. I'll tell you a little bit more about it later on in the show, but keep in mind that first $5 bet, you win that bet, you can get up to $200 in bonus bets. I'll tell you more about FanDuel later in the show. The Big 12 baseball tournament moving to Arizona in 2026. I'll talk about that. We'll also talk about this year's Big 12 baseball tournament, where TCU stands in the bracket, and what's really the focus. Aside from winning the games, what is the main priority for this TCU team in either the 1 or 3 games they have in Arlington at Globe Life Field? But we start today with TCU football and a little bit of a big picture topic this afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening, because it's the off season and we can do that. And Tim Finch, who is a frequent listener and YouTube viewer that I appreciate, he chimed in on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And he said, I wanted to say, watching Max Duggan play in a game called by Joel Klatt and Tim Brando felt eerily familiar. So if you didn't know, Max Duggan is still playing professional football. He got cut by the Los Angeles Chargers, didn't end up getting signed anywhere else, but he's playing professional football for the St. Louis Battlehawks, who are in the UFL. They're one of the better teams in that league. And over the last few games, he's had the opportunity to start. He did not start the year as a starter, but it appears he's won the job and is the guy now that's going to lead them through the rest of the season. And he's having a really good year. It's fun to watch him play. I think TCU needs to invite him back as a coach. Now, I say that with this caveat and this understanding. I'm not close with Max. I don't have sources that are close to him. I don't know how long he wants to play. I know these guys like to bounce around and play as long as they can. Max especially epitomizes loving football, just enjoying the game, wanting to be the best, wanting to be the toughest. And I think he loves being a quarterback. And so if there's a chance for him to extend his career, I think he'll probably take that. There's still an outside shot that maybe he ends up on an NFL roster somewhere. We've seen in the past, Kevontae Turpin, who is another TCU alum that's made a really good career with the Dallas Cowboys. He did it in one of these kind of spring ancillary leagues. But Max is having a good season for the Battlehawks. And if you watch highlights or catch him on Fox, it is eerily similar to his TCU career. He's running the ball a lot. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. He's throwing it all over the place. He's making plays. He's making things happen off schedule. He is Max Duggan. And before last season, like last offseason, I did a show at one point where I was talking about the best TCU quarterback of all time. And I had the opinion, and still am of the opinion, that Trayvon Boykin was the best best TCU quarterback of all time. Now, some of you guys disagree with me, and that's fine. As I was making that list, one thing I kind of realized and noted was all these guys, Andy Dalton, Max Duggan, Trayvon Boykin, Davey O'Brien, they had their own individual strengths, right? For Max, I'm not saying he was just these things, because in his last season, he had an incredible year. He finished second in the Heisman Trophy voting. But to me, the best thing about him, or the greatest thing about him, the thing that made him stand out, were his intangibles. He was always tough. He was always physical. He was always the guy that's going to lay it on the line, leave it all out on the field. The best example of that against K-State in the Big 12 championship game, when he's literally in the fetal position, basically after scoring a touchdown and getting a 2-point conversion, trying to get oxygen in his lungs because he's just been running the ball all over the place, refusing to get tackled, and tying that ball game up. But he did things like that throughout his career. The summer that we were debating here on this podcast and elsewhere about him or Chandler Morris being the starting quarterback for TCU, if you were a pro Max Duggan person, the best argument you could have is, look, this is a guy that rallies his teammates. You saw it his freshman year against Kansas State, where he ran over like 12 people to go score a touchdown. You saw it against Oklahoma on the road in Norman his freshman year, where he carried multiple Oklahoma defenders into the end zone. You saw it against Texas his freshman year, when he scored a rushing touchdown and threw the Frogs up in the end zone. You saw it in that 2020 season when the team was struggling and they basically changed their offense to make him just a battering ram that ran the ball downhill. And he was more than willing to do that. He played through an injury in a home game against Kansas that didn't really mean anything in the long run. After Gary Patterson had been let go and the team was flailing around, Chandler Morris gets hurt, Sam Jackson was banged up. It would have been easy for Max to say, you know what, I need surgery, I'm going to bow out. But he didn't do that. And then, of course, in that season where they went to the national title game, he had all those heroics and just made big play after big play. But to have Max on staff as a coach, I think it would help you on the field. This team needs more toughness. I thought they showed it at times last year, but it wasn't consistent enough. He would bring that to the culture at TCU again, because that's the type of person he is. I think it could also help in recruiting. You want players that are loyal. You want players that have the frog factor, that aren't just getting influenced by NIL deals. Who would be a better ambassador and a better representation of what we want the TCU football program to be than Max Duggan? Now you'll have to convince him, you know what? It's time to put pause on the dream. Maybe the NFL is not going to be an option. If it's not, come help us be the best program that we can be. It would also just be really cool for fans. He's beloved for obvious reasons. And it would be nice to have him back in the fold. He knows Sonny Dykes. He knows that offensive coaching staff well. And Sonny's made a point this offseason. He's hired a lot of people. Coach Bookbinder with the linebackers, Corey Coleman with the wide receivers, Randy Clements with the offensive line. He's playing a numbers game. He's trying to get the smartest people available and giving them an audience with these players. Max can come in. He can learn from Kendall Briles. He can learn from Malcolm Kelly. He can learn from Sonny. And use that as a building block for his career, whether it's at TCU or it's elsewhere. But he embodies what we want this TCU program to be about. So why not give him the opportunity to influence that and be the dude by helping QBs and being part of the recruiting process and finding the next player who can carry the torch and be the toughest dude out there. When we come back, TCU needs to figure out their pitching situation, and they don't have much time to do it. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Time to talk about one of our great sponsors, FanDuel, FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. NBA playoffs are in full swing right now. Every night is a battle with highlights and just outstanding plays. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. They have player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. And if you're like, what? I'm Steven, I'm not an NBA person. I'm not going to bet on the NBA. Well, listen to this. We already got a line for TCU in North Carolina in the season opener at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app. Horned Frogs 1.5 point underdogs to Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. I like them to cover that. I like them to win that game outright. Go make some money at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Just place one $5 bet. Just make one $5 bet. If you win, you can get up to $200 in bonus bets. If you've got a read on who's making it happen, on who's going to heat up, why not back it up on FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app? Again, it's the perfect time to sign up. Go to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, college football, NFL. It's all there. FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. TCU was the 3 seed in the Big 12 tournament. They finished conference play 19-11. They took 2 out of 3 from Utah this past weekend, and they will play the winner of Houston and Kansas State, and that game will take place, the TCU game will take place Thursday at 7:30. It's single elimination now in the Big 12 baseball tournament, which is interesting for sure. They want to get this done as quickly as possible. There's 12 teams. The championship game will be Saturday at 6:00. But I want to discuss, okay, what does TCU need to focus on? Obviously, they want to win. Just for reference, they are currently a projected host at D1 Baseball. D1 Baseball is doing their Field of 64 almost on a daily basis all week long because of all the conference tournaments and all the different things that could move around here. But D1 Baseball has them as the 15th seed as a host, which means they're right on the bubble of hosting. So you think one win is a necessary component to keep that level going. You got to win one game to solidify yourself as a host. If you can win 2 and make the Big 12 championship game, that would be a big boost. They play most likely Kansas State if things go chalk, and then potentially Kansas in the semifinals, West Virginia, the 1 seed if they met them in the Big 12 championship. West Virginia regular season champs. They did not play TCU. And they dodged a few other teams too, but it is what it is. They're regular season champions. You need to win one game. You also need to figure out what is going on with your pitching staff. Tommy Lepore, I imagine he's going to get the start Thursday evening. He started last Thursday, struggled, gave up 5 runs. It's been a grind lately for Tommy. You're going back to that start against Arizona where he pitched well, but he didn't have his best stuff and he had to grind it out. And then against Cincinnati and Utah over the last 2 starts, he's given up 5 runs apiece and doesn't look like himself. And then once you get past that, do you give Cademan Parker another chance? I would say no. Now, that doesn't mean you just completely get rid of Cademan Parker as an option. I think he could be a bullpen arm. I think he could be a long relief guy. But I'm not giving Cademan Parker another chance to start. He got lit up against Utah, gave up 7 runs, recorded 1 out, but it was an outfield assist. And you just don't have time to mess around at this point. So if I were TCU, I would start Mason Brassfield. I would maybe give Trevor Baumler a look. Cole Klecker is an option too, even though I think if you went to Cole, it would be more of an opener situation. Could he get you one run through the lineup, whether that ends up being 2 or 3 innings? And then could you turn it over to Braden Sloan or Luis Rodriguez, who are going to be your typical long relief guys? But this team, they have to find a second starter, or at least over this weekend, they need to cobble together and figure out, okay, if we don't have a true starter, what combinations do we like? Can we get 2 innings from Mason Bixby at the beginning of the game with his velocity and his power stuff, and then turn it over to Braden Sloan, who gives you a totally different look with his arm slot and he's throwing off speed stuff? Do you give Cole Klecker a chance? That's my biggest, that's the thing that right now is giving me pause about where this team can go, because even though they played really well at Lupton, and they have, the bats have been better there. I think their pitching's been better there. If you've only got 1 starter, you could be in a world of hurt. Now, if you end up hosting The other good part of that is you could potentially take a risk and throw a Cole Klecker or a Brassfield or a Baumler in game 1 against the 4 seed and hope that you take care of your business and you win. And then you turn it over to Tommy Lepore against the 2 or the 3 seed, whoever wins, and you go from there. But once you get past Tommy on the hill as a starter, right now it's an adventure. And that's not great news for a team that is getting ready to potentially have a postseason run. Also, I didn't get to this news yesterday, but Carson Bowen has broken ribs, according to JD Andrus from Sports Illustrated. And there's no timetable on his return, but broken ribs to me, I mean, that sounds like it's potentially a season-ending injury. And I hate that for Carson. I thought he's had a really nice bounce-back year after struggling last season. He's been a solid presence in that leadoff role. My assumption is Colton Griffin will kind of take that over and be the next dude up when we talk about starting the lineup off and getting on base. And Griffin gives you some speed that Carson doesn't have, but Carson has some serious pop, and he's also just hitting the ball well this year. He had a good approach at the plate. There were a lot of things to like about the way Carson was playing, and I hate that the season's ending like this for him. But Noah Franco, Sawyer Stroh-Snyder, Chase Brunson, I mean, these guys have to be the ones leading the charge. And if this team is going to make a run, to me, it starts with scoring runs. Like, yes, you're going to need the pitching, but most likely you're going to be kind of cobbling some things together and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. But if you can jump on teams early in games, then it takes some of the pressure off your pitching staff and allows them to just go out there and attack and throw strikes and be the best versions of themselves. So Bill Mosiello, I mean, I know he loves to be aggressive, but I think the key is manufacture runs, use that gap-to-gap power you have, and give your defense and your pitching staff the chance to work a lot with the lead so that they can really focus and go after these hitters on the other side. Thursday at 7:30, winner of Kansas State or Houston. They took 2 out of 3 from Houston in the regular season. They played K-State in the second weekend of the year at Globe Life and got blitzed, but that was a long time ago, and it was one game. So I think they'll match up with both of those teams really well. When we come back, the Big 12 is moving the baseball tournament to Arizona. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. So some news from the Big 12 Conference today. Starting in 2026, Surprise Stadium in Arizona will host the Big 12 Championships. We are excited to continue our partnership with Rev Entertainment as the Big 12 Baseball Championship moves to a world-class venue in Arizona, said Big 12 Chief Competition Officer Scott Draper. Surprise Stadium is a premier facility that will create a great atmosphere and experience for our student athletes and our fans. It holds over 10,000 people, but it's located in Arizona. Right now, it's at Globe Life. And I think it's awesome. The main reason I think it's awesome, no weather delays. I really enjoyed Bricktown Ballpark, and I liked that the Big 12 tournament was there. I thought it was a cool thing. But literally every year, this is not an exaggeration, every single year, there will be some sort of weather delay. Whether it was rain or lightning, games would get delayed, games wouldn't start on time, games would get pushed. I remember one season, TCU was trying to fight their way out of the loser's bracket, and they played Oklahoma State in an elimination game like at 8 a.m. on a Sunday because they were trying to get that game in and then play a doubleheader that night and then potentially a winner-take-all game on a Monday. But it's just inevitable. It was going to get pushed one way or the other. Globe Life, I mean, is a central location. What does that even mean in today's Big 12? it's not quite a coast to coast conference, but you got 3 different time zones represented. So it's spanning a large region. The idea that like you can find a very centralized location for the Big 12 is silly, right? It's just not possible. But Arizona's an odd choice. It's going to be miserably hot. And okay, it's a good spring training facility. That doesn't mean it's like equipped to run a tournament. And also, I think the biggest reason for this, the crowds at Globe Life aren't great. It's a big stadium. It's a Major League Baseball stadium. So it's tough to fill it up. The SEC tournament right now is in Hoover, Alabama. There have been rumors that the Rangers and the Globe Life people have wanted to partner with the SEC tournament and get it indoors at Globe Life. But if the issue for the Big 12 is attendance, I don't think you're garnering more attendance by moving to Arizona. I can't imagine people are jumping in at the opportunity to go to Surprise, Arizona for a weekend or half a week and check out the Big 12 baseball tournament. So it doesn't make sense to me what the thought process was behind this. I saw somebody say geography, but like, again, there's no real central location. I guess if you're going to move it around from year to year, but the way they announced this, it sounds like it's a multi-year partnership. But if you're going to bounce it around and your new plan is like, okay, we'll do it as Surprise one season, and then maybe we'll do it in Dallas, and then somewhere closer to the Midwest, that's fine. But this feels like more of a permanent relocation that they're mulling over here. And I'm not sure why they landed on this spot, but that's the latest from the Big 12 Conference. The Big 12 baseball tournament getting moved to Surprise, Arizona, and away from Globe Life Field. Yesterday, I talked about Ed Small as a freshman who could make a big impact. And I think he's one of a few. I mean, I feel like Chad Woodfork is going to be a part of their pass rush this year. This is a big season for the stud linebacker edge rusher position. You know what you have from Devin Deal, but then I think Jonathan Baxis is year 3. It's one of those times where whether you like it or not, it's like, all right, if we're going to get something out of this guy, it needs to be this season. Not only for our sake, but to keep him happy and keep him engaged in what we got going on. And then you have a freshman like Chad Woodfork, who looks like he's built for the moment. And this is the key to unlocking that Andy Avalos defense. It's about putting pass rushers in one-on-one situations and allowing them to succeed. And you can't do that if you don't have guys that can win those battles. They found that in the transfer portal last year with McDonald and Devin Deal. Now, can you get more production from your young guys so you have multiple years of eligibility and you can watch these guys grow and develop within your system and mold them into the players that you want them to be? So we'll get to see that for the first time. Killian Registre has the frame to play quickly, but I think they're going to be patient with him also. As I said yesterday, he didn't roll early, so that's a huge jump to try to make. Terry Shelton, it's not because of lack of ability. I just think there's such a log jam at outside wide receiver. It's going to be tough for him to break through and be a guy that makes plays right away. But I love his frame and what he can do and just everything that he brings to the table. Adam Schobel is going to be a backup quarterback. Now, I've maintained I would love to see TCU give him the opportunity to win that number 2 job, or at least get a lot of reps with the ones this offseason, because I think that's a huge part of making sure he knows, hey, you're part of our plans. We don't want this to be a Haas Haney situation where you don't feel valued and after 1 year you bolt. We want to make sure you know that, like, we see you as the future of this program. We see you as the guy. You're not the starter right now, but we'll let you battle with Ken Seals. We'll give you opportunities to get reps with the 1s and 2s so that you can start to get a sense of like what this looks like. That's going to be a huge key as well. But there's some freshmen who can play here. And even though this is an older roster that has a lot of contributors, I think there'll be opportunities at certain spots for guys to step in and make plays. We'll be back tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us wherever you get your podcast.